I called out to my wife and daughter. For about a month now, they had been ignoring me. It hurt a lot. I didn't know what was making it happen. At home, I felt like no one was paying attention to me until I realized they were. "Dad, did you hear something?" "No. I think it's just your mind wandering." My husband and daughter kept ignoring me even though they could see and hear me clearly. It looked like I wasn't even there. I chose to leave my house because I couldn't take it any longer. 5 years later, I got what was coming to me out of the blue. I go by the name Natalie Smith. I'm 50 years old, with my husband Jackson and our daughter Ruby. I used to be like most stay-at-home moms. Jack and I met at work 23 years ago. We were both making good money at the time. We were safe and didn't have to worry about money. My wife and I had a healthy girl named Ruby on my 30th birthday. She grew up without any major health problems. For Ruby's sake, I stayed at home after she was born. Jackson didn't agree with my choice to go back to work after a year off. He asked Natalie, "Do you really have to go back to work?" For Ruby's sake, I think I should. When asked, I said, "I can support us, and my salary is good, but wouldn't it be better to save money?" "We have a lot of money saved up," he stated. Continuing, he said, "I want you to focus on our daughter and the house." After a lot of thought, I decided to quit my job. That's when I started taking care of the house and being a mom. To be honest, I didn't understand how hard parenting could be until Lena was born. For Ruby's sake, I had to keep feeding her every few hours, even though it meant I didn't get enough sleep and sometimes missed meals. It was also hard to keep up with all the tasks. Even though I tried to finish them while Ruby slept, I was usually so tired that I fell asleep too. Jackson mostly let me handle things on my own, but he did help me sometimes. As the days went by, he took over when Ruby was quiet and let her cry when she needed to. In an instant, Ruby turned 16. She came up to me after her 16th birthday party. "Since you didn't want to rent an outfit, we chose to buy one. Do you remember I said that's why we didn't employ a photographer?" "What? Why not? Every one of my pals had one." Ruby cried out. However, I pointed out that you can't get a photographer free. When I was a child, I didn't care about it. "Shouldn't parents take care of that?" She shot back. Jackson detected the tension as soon as he arrived from work. "What's happening?" he asked. The only one who didn't turn to him was me, and Ruby came to him to complain. "I didn't want to rent a dress," according to Mom. "Is that reasonable?" "I understand your disappointment." Jackson added, "You'd want one if all of your friends had one. I'll pay for a photographer to take pictures of you wearing your dress." "Really? I'm grateful, Dad. I love you." Ruby let out a happy shout, turned away from me, and left the living room. Jackson seemed too eager to give in to Ruby, so I had to talk to him. "Please hold on a second. Why do you decide things like this without consulting me?" I asked. "Just pictures," he replied. "Only pictures." I yelled, "Are you aware of how much it costs to hire a photographer? It may cost more than $1,000, I yelled. "Ruby wants it, so shouldn't you pay for it?" "I'm the one supporting the family, you know," Jackson replied cynically. "You don't help pay for our bills, that's true. But I made it clear that I had been using my money to meet most of Ruby's needs since before she was born. Do not talk, just do what I tell you. So who do you think you are if you're not cleaner around here? After that, leave. How are you going to make ends meet now that you don't have a job?" He would smile and make fun of me. Even though it was annoying, there was some truth to what he said. Jackson kept coming up with reasons why I couldn't go back to work as Ruby got bigger, so I stayed out of work. I had about $100,000 in cash when we got married, but now I only had about $20,000 left. If I left now, it would be hard for me to make it on my own. When I thought about that, I was quiet. "You can't manage without me," Jackson said with joy, and I clenched my teeth. "Do you get it? Just do what I tell you to do. Don't argue with me again. Make sure you hire a shooter for Ruby's picture shoot." "Okay then." "Yes, of course," I said in a low voice as he threw off his suit and went to the toilet. As I gave him his clothes, I felt angry inside. What was the point of this? How much worse could Jackson and Ruby get for me? I never set out to be a stay-at-home mom. After giving it some thought, I chose to start working from home just in case. Jackson laughed and said, "Do whatever you want." That's when I started working at a job that was within our tax rate. Ruby's picture shoot cost $1,500 altogether. It cost a lot because she insisted on having all the photo info and the biggest print job. Ruby looked at the printed picture and said, "Oh, I look awful in this. I look a lot better than that." "Do not say that. The shooter worked very hard to get this shot for you. It's possible that the company was at fault at first. Mom, you chose that place. It was the only one that was free when you were free. Don't say sorry anymore. I don't think I'll ever look at this picture again, so just throw it away." "What do you mean?" I mumbled, and my voice was shaking with anger and sadness. I was going to cry, but I knew I shouldn't because I'm a mom. I took a deep breath in the kitchen to help me calm down while I fought back tears. I didn't think things would get worse. The next morning I made breakfast like always, but Jackson and Ruby never came downstairs. As they came down the stairs, I heard them talking. I was about to go check on them when I heard, "Dad, where are we going to eat breakfast? Could that cafe next to the station work? I've heard that their breakfasts are great, and I'd like to check it out." I yelled, "Wait a second," because I didn't understand what was going on. Jackson said, "Okay, let's go then, breakfast is time. Honey, can't you hear me? Let's eat now." But they didn't answer. When the door slammed shut, their happy talk stopped. I couldn't figure out what was going on. It happened more than once. They ignored me every time I tried to get in touch with them. Why would they both hurt me this way? Or did they not hear me because something else was going on? They went out to eat dinner without me and didn't eat the food I had made, but they came home together later that night. Each one went straight to their room. This trend kept happening every day, and it broke my heart. For a month, they didn't change how they were acting. Then one day, I found finalized divorce papers in the living room. What does this mean? As usual, Jackson and Ruby ignored my question while they happily ate pizza and watched a movie together. Then it hit me. Everything I hadn't been letting out came to a head. I finally spoke up, with tears running down my face from fear. "Hey, why? Why don't you both answer me?" I begged, but no one heard me. They didn't pay any attention to me at all and kept laughing and watching the movie. I had no idea what caused this. Before I knew it, my husband and daughter were ignoring me in our own home. "You heard me, Dad?" I yelled. "You're supposed to be my family, but it feels like I'm invisible here." They didn't pay attention to me even though they could see and hear me, so it's all in your head. It was like they didn't know I existed. I was about to lose it. There were only a few things in my carry-on bag. I grabbed the divorce papers and quietly left the house. I took the train for about an hour to get to my parents' house. Luckily, my parents are still alive and happy with their retirement. When I showed up with bags, they were shocked, but after I explained, they hugged me. "Nicole, I can tell you've been through a lot. We're sorry we didn't notice sooner," my parents politely replied. They told me, "You can stay here as long as you need to get back on your feet." What they said that day made me cry. Before that, I hadn't cried that much in public in decades. My married name is Adams, so I changed my name from Smith to Adams. The next day I filed for divorce. I felt a little lonely, but I was able to pick myself up and start looking for work. It made me feel scared. After leaving my job at 30 and not having worked in 20 years, I wondered if there was still a place for me in the workforce at 50. That really is a twist. This version has been changed. I was grateful that the first job I applied for hired me right away. The people I worked for before were impressed by my experience, and I quickly found myself in charge of important jobs. Over the next 5 years, I became very good at my job and began teaching new workers how to do it. Harris, a coworker about the same age as my daughter Ruby, and I became friends. He was like having a son when I talked to him. His mother, who was about my age, became a close friend, and we talked about everything from personal to work-related things. Harris, who has been with the company for 3 years, gave me an envelope one day. "What is this?" I asked, interested. He said with a shy smile, "I'm getting married, and I really want you to come to my wedding. Good job. I wish I could be there." "Thank you," I replied in a nice way. When I got home and opened the letter, I was shocked. Daisy Smith, my daughter, was the bride. "I guess you're joking? Could this be a mistake?" I yelled out loud. Right then, my phone rang. Jackson was the main one. "Hey, it's been a while," he said. "How are you doing?" Without any emotion. "What do you wish for?" I snapped back. "Don't be that way," Jackson then said. "You should go to Ruby's wedding. What are you talking about? We're not together anymore." I told them, "I can't just show up and act like nothing's wrong. Please understand." He hung up the phone before I could answer and said, "I'll send the invitation to your parents' house as Ruby's mother. I had no plans to attend her wedding." I told Harris that I was already going to be there, though. It would be rude to say no now. When I thought about it, I reluctantly chose to go. Harris worked for me, so on the groom's side of the wedding 2 months later, I was a guest. At the Secret Service, only close family members were present. The guests were going to be at the gathering. I saw an empty seat in the family room. It looks like Jackson hadn't seen me yet. While the bride and groom's opening film was ending, they began to introduce themselves to each table. Harris came over to our table and said hello. Ruby's face turned white with surprise as he said, "Thank you so much for coming today." When Jackson found out this, he ran over in shock. "What's going on?" "Why are you sitting here?" he asked. "Are you scared?" Everyone in the room looked at us. Harris asked with interest as he watched the tense moment. "Please tell me you know Ms. Adams." He quickly said, "She's Ruby's mother." "What? That's not true," I told Harris calmly. "But I was told Ruby's mother left the family and abandoned them." Jackson and Ruby had planned to make me the bad guy. And their faces showed it as they stood there. I made the choice to fix the record. "Harris, I'm sorry I didn't tell you the truth sooner. My name is Natalie Adams and I'm Ruby's mom." "Did you really leave Ruby and her husband?" "In order to get more information," Harris asked. "It's not true. In the end, my husband and daughter stopped paying attention to me because they saw me as a housekeeper, not cared about. In fact, it went on for a month until I finally lost it." Jackson had already prepared the divorce papers for me, so I took them and left. I didn't go. They pushed me out of the way. "Ruby, why did you not care about your mother?" "Because I wanted to know," I asked. Ruby said irrationally, her smile going away. "My dad and I decided to ignore her because she was a pain in every way. After only 1 month, she left." "Isn't that funny?" She didn't say anything. "Ruby, are you sure? Everything is fine. It won't bother you." As if to put the issue out of her mind, Ruby smiled and said, "Just think of me as not having a mother." But Harris couldn't keep quiet because he was clearly angry. "What do you say?" "This is an important matter." Harris replied with sadness, "I never knew you could be so heartless." Ruby was shocked by his answer and didn't know what to say. "What?" Clearly she hadn't thought that Harris would back me up. Harris pulled away from Ruby's touch, and his voice was cold and hard. "This is the end of the deal." "What did Harris say?" "I'm glad I saw your true colors before we got married." "That's not possible, can it?" Ruby spoke out in surprise. "Do not touch me. I never want to be with someone as cruel as you again." "The wedding is no longer going to happen," Harris said firmly, cutting the other person off. "Not at all." Harris took the mic and spoke to the crowd after saying sorry from the bottom of his heart. He told them to take their gifts back and leave, saying, "I'm so sorry everyone, please don't leave." Rudy cried out in pain, but the guests looked away with cold faces. Jackson yelled at me, "Do something, Natalie," just as I was about to follow them out the door. "What? Why should I? Didn't you do this? It's okay that you messed up Ruby's wedding." I shot back, laughing so hard I couldn't hold it in. "What's so funny about it?" Jackson screamed and got even more angry. "The whole funny thing about it, I really don't feel sorry for Ruby. You both made this happen. You deserve this," I told her firmly. "What's up with Ruby's marriage?" His voice was tense as he pushed. "I don't care. I'm just glad that Harris, one of my important teammates, doesn't have to marry someone like Ruby. He deserves someone much better." "Thank you. I'm not going to see you again." After saying that, I left the place without going back. It made me feel good to know that I had made the right decision. In the end, Ruby and Harris's wedding was called off. The truth came out: Ruby had been a temporary worker who planned to quit so she could get married. Ruby started spending too much on brand goods as a way to deal with her stress about not having a regular source of income and being single. But Jackson had to spend all of his savings to keep Ruby's life going. It was clear that their unhealthy way of life was about to fall apart. At last, I felt free from those obligations. I want to focus on living my life to the best and finding my own happiness going forward, without being held back by their drama.